Hi guys, just a small trigger warning before we start this interview. This interview may contain some distressing topics such as drug use, trauma and mental health, so viewer discretion is advised. If you are struggling with any of the issues raised, please have a look in the description box below this video to see the different services available. Now, on with the show. Hi everyone, it's Cara from the Senior Young Reporters. We're back at G4 Studios for a very special interview. But first, let's see who's joining me today. I'm joined by Marvin and Leah. Say hi guys.
Hi.
So how are you both?
I'm good.
How's your week been?
Okay.
Now joining us here on the Larnac QC podcast today is Thomas Delaney. Thomas is a public speaker who travels all around the UK to spread awareness of drugs and their complexities. He has shared his deeply personal and honest story to a wide audience and has collaborated with different outlets such as Lad Bible, BBC and Vice. Today he is here to talk to us about his story and to help empower young people in their awareness of drugs. Thanks for joining us here today, Thomas.
You're welcome, thank you.
So we've got some very interesting questions for you.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
So will I start?
Yeah.
What was the best thing about quitting drugs?
Multiple different things. I recently became a father, which is probably like the best thing ever in my entire life. And thankfully I didn't become a father when I was someone that used drugs, because I probably would have just ruined his life. But yeah, definitely being a father, but also then just sorting my life out in general. Just getting into recovery was like, ultimately the best thing, because otherwise I wouldn't have A, had a life, B, wouldn't have had a son or a partner or any of the stuff that I've got today. And I think there's a lot more about, I guess, the spiritual connections that I have as opposed to the materialistic possessions that sometimes I crave, and also all of us crave sometimes as well. But yeah, I guess the fact that I'm alive.
Yeah.
Because I wouldn't have been. I don't know. I know you've researched me and stuff, so you've probably seen some pictures. Like I can't explain to you how close I was to death. Whether that was through my addiction or whether that was through my mental health. And, I was quite happily in a place where I would have taken my own life either way, unless I did sort it out, which thankfully I did. So,
Marvin?
What message would you give to young people who might be thinking about trying drugs?
Oh, great question. Well, I think ultimately it's about realizing why you want to try drugs in the first place. I don't believe that every single person that tries drugs ends up being, I hate the word, but drug addict, right? Not everybody that tries drugs ends up being like me or the millions of other people around the planet that end up like that. There are people that take drugs that can do it recreationally. But again, I wouldn't really advise that. If you can stay clear. But also I think if you can understand the reasons as to why you want to use drugs in the first place. For me, it was all about trauma and adverse childhood experiences. I had a very difficult childhood growing up. I saw some horrific things, which is created through my father and his alcoholism and his gambling and his violent and abusive behavior. But also throughout my entire life, I was always sort of plagued with issues. But yeah, I guess if you understand why you want to use drugs, then you can address that instead. So for me, I was always trying to escape and run away. So I would use drugs and I actually grew up hating drugs. Like I was, we were all taught in schools, well, not necessarily taught, but there's this sort of, I guess, stigma towards using drugs in the first place. Like it's bad. And if you use drugs, it makes you a bad person and it's an immoral choice and all of that. But ultimately, I chose to use drugs because I was suffering and I thought drugs was the answer. Obviously, after about 14 years of doing drugs, I realized that it wasn't. And also what I realized was it was the underlying issues. So it was all the trauma, all the adverse childhood experiences, all the things that I kept hidden and hid because I was ashamed, because I felt guilty. And a lot of that stuff was stemmed by other people. It wasn't even my fault why I felt like that. But yeah, if you can actually work out the reason why you want to use drugs and tackle that, whether it's through therapy or through speaking to people or there's a million different ways you can recover and deal with mental health issues as well. But if you can do that instead, you'd be saving a lot of time, energy, pain, suffering, money. Not that the money is so important, but you can definitely address issues at a much earlier age. And that also is the hardest thing to do. It's all right saying it. It sounds very easy when you say it like that, but it's not. And it depends on that person's capacity as well, and also where they live. There's a lot of factors that can affect someone's chances of recovery. So, yeah, hopefully I answered that.
If you could talk to your younger self, what would you say?
It's going to be all right. I think that is the only thing that I could probably say to my younger self. And I guess, yeah, just that it's going to be all right. You know, I wouldn't necessarily, I guess there's loads of mistakes that I made like throughout my entire life, regardless of whether I was a drug addict or not. There's always mistakes. We're human beings. We make mistakes all the time. I still make mistakes today. But ultimately I believe that, you know, if I could just tell myself it's going to work out all right. I wouldn't say don't ever take drugs or don't try and do that or whatever, because I think I'm a much better person now for the experiences that I've had. You know, maybe I'd like to have made a few less mistakes, hurt people emotionally. I don't mean hurt people physically, but there's obviously been people over the years that I've affected through my drugs, from my drug abuse, and emotionally hurt people and upset people. And I just wish I didn't do that, but unfortunately I did. I know I can't repair that. I can't fix it. I can't change it, but I can live my life today that hopefully is much better than it used to be, and do things like this, which hopefully does good rather than bad. So yeah, it's going to be all right.
Do you have any techniques to like ground yourself?
Yeah. So breath work's quite important. Breathing. I meditate sometimes. Not as much as I used to, but then life is busy. And it's, you see all these gurus, especially on social media, and it's like they live in the woods, they hug trees every day, they do yoga every day. Well, that's not most people's lives. Most people have to get up and either go to a job, most of them probably that they hate, or they have families that they need to provide for, or they've got, things that they need to pay for. Most people have to get up and I nearly swore. Can I swear? No. It's only an S word, but yeah, most people have stuff to do. And it's very hard to pause your life and actually realize what's good for you. And I also think systemically that's part of the problem. We don't have a lot of time on our hands to actually look after ourselves because we're too busy either looking after other people, whether, you're a father or a mother or whatever. But we're always, especially in our society, we're very busy people. And I guess that's also sort of glamorized in a way that, we should be hustling all the time. We should be out there earning loads of money and all that. And none of that's really important. But it is hard to take time to reflect. And I think for me, I write journal. I do journaling, not all the time, not as much as I used to, but I'm always critically reflecting on my work, my praxis, everything really, personal stuff as well. And yeah, I guess I'm always trying to reflect to learn where I went wrong or what could be improved, and then try and do that again, but better. So yeah.
This next question's from Ailey, who sadly couldn't make it today. Okay. But how has your addiction changed how people see you and act around you?
It's weird because I'm no longer that person that you've seen. But also when I was that person, like when I was 6 stone and nearly dead, I was a drug addict for 14 years. There was times where I just looked like this and I was still a drug addict. There was times where I looked like what you've seen and I was still a drug addict. So I guess you're treated differently depending on how you look as well. Also, from my own experience of like being in rehab and being in treatment and all of that, socially people are treated differently. If you're rich or affluent and you come from, what we would say a good family, you're probably treated differently. You're probably treated with more dignity, more respect. And that just isn't in rehab or within treatment, but that's just in life in general, within the society that we live. If you notice, when celebrities go to rehab, it's glamorized and it's like, oh my God, they're doing something to get better. That's amazing. And it's really supported and encouraged. But then when you see people that aren't celebrities and rich and famous or powerful, it's sort of demonized to go to rehab. It's like, oh my God, you failed. You've ruined your life and now you have to go to rehab. And it's seen as a moral decision and a lack of moral conscience. And I guess you're viewed in a sort of bad perspective as opposed to the opposite, which would be a rich and famous celebrity. But I'm treated, it's weird because I work as a speaker and an educator. So I travel the UK. I speak to huge audiences across the UK, and obviously with all the social media stuff that I do, to millions of people around the planet. And most of that is quite positive. Some of it sometimes is tokenistic as well. I understand that. But ultimately, it gives me a space where I can actually share my story in the hope that it will inspire someone else to change and not motivate. I don't think anybody can motivate anybody to do anything apart from yourself. But I like to think that my story perhaps sheds a light on the socioeconomic issues surrounding addiction, and also tries to tackle the stigma as well. So mostly I'm treated with great dignity and respect. But then if you look at some of the stuff that I've done, especially, for example, say the work with Lad Bible. I've worked with Lad Bible multiple times. It's been viewed millions and millions of times across all platforms. And there is a huge amount of sort of stigma that's attached to the work that I do. So even though I like to think that I'm doing good work, that's up to that's up for debate. But there's a lot of people out there that demonize even speaking about addiction, or that say I shouldn't have a platform like I do to be able to do the work that I do, or it's about the money or about the likes or whatever. And none of that's important. I don't really care about that. What I care about is trying to share a message that hopefully can inspire someone else to change their life that seriously needs to do that. But I guess over the years, what I've realized is the people that leave the most hatred online are generally the people that need the most help and support. They're generally the ones that are in their bedrooms or wherever in the kitchens at 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning, snorting whatever, or injecting whatever, or taking whatever. And I think most people that leave negativity like that are just people that are hurting. And they're, unfortunately and ironically, the people that probably need to listen the most. But I can't change anybody. I'm aware of that. No one can change you, apart from yourself. But I think that the more and more people that talk about addiction helps to tackle the stigma that surrounds it, and maybe builds the capacity for more people to get better. So yeah, it's a long answer to the question, but
do you face any challenges today because of your past addiction?
Yeah. So I use various drugs, mostly party drugs, so like cocaine, acid, ecstasy, pills, stuff like that. In particular, cocaine in the beginning, but probably for about 12 years of my 14, nearly 15-year addiction. 14 years or so. But probably 11 or 12 years of that was ketamine. And thankfully, I managed to have maybe a year or two off during that 12-year period. Not in one go, but there was times where I moved back. So even though I've got an English accent, I'm originally from Ireland. So like when I moved back to Ireland, I was relatively clean and sober for like 18 months. Or when I went back to London, I would probably use most weekends or maybe once a month if I went out. But other than that, I wouldn't really be using drugs, and certainly not to the degree that I was when I was really, really in my addiction. But ketamine destroys your bladder, which is a huge side effect, which we're only sort of seeing the consequences of now. Like a lot of my friends that are my age or older, and for some reason, I think it affects women slightly more. I'm not sure why, and I have no scientific evidence to base that upon, apart from my experience. But some of my friends wear nappies, adult nappies. They get up and go to work wearing a nappy, or they don't work and they stay at home wearing a nappy. Some of my friends have lost their bladders. Some of my friends have taken their own lives. And it wasn't because they were suicidal or because they were suffering, they were obviously suffering with mental health problems. But I think the reasons why they took their lives was because they couldn't find a way of stopping taking drugs. And they thought that, like I did when I was in that situation, I thought that if I took my life, everything would get better for everybody else. And I genuinely believe that I wouldn't be in pain anymore, physically and emotionally. But thankfully I managed to find a way. But there's, a lot of my friends aren't alive today. And a lot of my friends that are alive today that still use ketamine in particular, they don't have a good quality of life. They're constantly in and out of the urology department at hospital. Barnsley in particular, whereas a place that I live as well. Barnsley, in terms of the NHS, it is the most visited urology department in the UK for people suffering with addiction abuse. So that just gives you an indication to how rife it is, in particular in Barnsley, but across the UK as well. And unfortunately with your demographic as well, your age demographic. And there's millions of reasons for that. But yeah, I still have side effects from that. But I'll accept that.
What was it like in rehab?
Hard, and it should be. I have a love-hate relationship with rehab. So getting into rehab, first of all, I don't come from a rich family. I don't really have any communication with my parents or anything like that as well, unfortunately. But getting into rehab is like winning the X Factor. Like, you have to go through a series of auditions. And I don't mean being on stage and singing or dancing or doing a magic trick, although I'd have done that if it had helped. But, you know, you have to go to a program. Within that program, you have to explain why you want to go to rehab. And also the people that have the support, financial support to send you to rehab, they need to really see something in you and believe that actually you want to go to rehab and sort your life out. And I was very fortunate that in 2018, I gave myself two choices, which was I take my life between Christmas and New Year in 2018, or I fix my addiction. And I don't mean run away back to Ireland or back to London or wherever, or Mars. You know, I meant tackle it straight on, talk about all the stuff that I'd never shared, that I'd hid, that was really destroying me. And then I started, I think it was around about May, June, and I got thankfully fast-tracked. And on the 2nd of November, 2018, I went to rehab. Ironically, in Glasgow, the drug capital of Europe. So I went to the worst place in Europe for drugs to get away from drugs. And it was tough. You know, everyone has this perception of rehab being really safe and such a great environment. And yeah, it is at times. But, you know, I was a drug addict for 14 years and I never saw heroin until I went to rehab, in rehab. So that gives you an indication of, at times, it can be a very dangerous place. Not everybody goes to rehab because they want to get better. And sometimes people go to rehab to get better, but have no intentions of really doing it. You know, they tend to do it to try and please everybody else, whether it's a partner or the mum and dad or whoever, or even if they've got children. You know, some people have all the best intentions of getting better for people around them, but ultimately need to do it for yourself. And yeah, you know, it's a hard place. You're not allowed a phone, no social media, no communication with the outside world. You have structure. You have to get out of your bed, your pit in the morning. You know, you can't lay around all day. You have structure. You have jobs, which obviously you're not paid for, but you're in rehab. And the rehab that I went to, it operates through a therapeutic community. So you all contribute to the running and to the day-to-day program that we're in. Which is great, but also presents lots of challenges as well. But we cooked for ourselves, we cleaned for ourselves, we looked after the place. There was staff there and everything. We had like staff members that would stay 24 hours, 7 days a week. But ultimately, you know, it was down to the people that were there. But statistically, you know, just because I went to rehab, most people don't make it as well, despite probably what you read in the newspapers or by the rehabs that post all the statistics. I was in rehab with 30 people. There was 31 of us. I left rehab 7 years ago and more than half those people are dead. I went to a graduation. I was actually invited to a graduation last year. I think it was about October, November time, maybe September. And out of the last 7 years, there was maybe, 15 people at that graduation. And if you can think that's over 7 years, there was obviously a couple of people that couldn't make it. But still, you know, if you think that you've got 31 people that are going in rehab for either a 4-week detox or a 3-month program or a 6-month program in 7 years, you've only got like 15 people at the end that graduate. You know, it doesn't present a great image, but you know, there's lots of reasons why people don't survive in rehab. I don't mean survive as in live. That happens as well. People die. But there's tons of reasons as to why people don't make rehab a success. And it's hard. You know, it's really hard. But all things that are, you know, change should be hard. So, yeah.
Do you guys have any more questions that you want to ask?
I was trying to think of what
What do you guys know about drugs? And have you seen it at school or what do you think?
Well, like, some people, like, we probably do drugs in our school, but we don't really know.
Yeah.
But,
a lot of people like to smoke, like, weed and stuff.
You can smell it.
And vapes, I guess.
Oh,
that's
100%.
That's not
Probably like half of our school.
Yeah. And it's like, there's like a vape, like we call it the vape corridor, like the blue stairs, because all our stairs have different like colours. and like that's like the vape.
That's
like,
where
stay
everyone-
on.
Oh, is it?
That's like
Yeah.
where they like vape.
And they like skip class and stuff to go out and do stuff like that.
Yeah.
Can I ask you lot a question? Is that all right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Am I allowed? Yeah. So, are you all at school together? Or is
Yeah.
it-
Yeah. Except
Well, more everyone's in a different school.
All right. Do you have like a drug education program in school? And if you were to say, for example, you were using drugs, is there someone at school that you could speak to, and what do you think would happen?
Yeah, like when we're in, it's called personal and social education, and we do that with our pupil support teacher.
Yeah.
That gets a put with a different house group, like colours. Like there's a bunch of different colours, and you'll be assigned with your pupil support teacher. And if you need help with anything, you go and talk to them.
Yeah.
And then in personal and social education, we go through topics. Like we've already done alcohol abuse and like smoking and vaping. And when we go into S3, we'll learn about drugs.
Yeah. Are you excited? I don't want to use the word excited, but how do you feel about being taught? Like, because it's quite a taboo subject, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's like, I work with thousands of young people a year. I speak in schools and colleges and universities across the UK as well. But it's always weird, I think, for the young people that I work with to have someone come in, especially like me, that talks really openly and candidly about drugs. But I don't necessarily talk about drugs. I sort of talk about all the systemic underlying issues surrounding addiction. So I don't go in and go, this is ketamine, this is cocaine, this is how you do it. It's more about my experience of what led me into addiction in the first place and how I beat it. And also, I guess, the lessons that they could potentially learn from. And even just to talk about it, because that in itself is really building the capacity for change, because you're probably not really invited or allowed. And again, addiction is such a stigmatized topic that you sort of don't talk about it, which is why loads of people die from it, because they don't know who to talk to or how. But yeah, it's interesting that you do have education. And also like alcohol, which you mentioned, that's a drug, but it's legal. It's socially acceptable. We pay tax on it. So therefore it's acceptable. But alcohol kills more people than all the other drugs combined. Like, that's an actual statistic. Alcohol is one of the worst killers on the planet, and the detrimental effects it has on your body, your liver, your kidneys, all of that. Like it kills more than all the other drugs combined. But yeah, when we talk about drugs, we never seem to mention alcohol. Or the other addictions, such as like TikTok or Snapchat or all the social media that are all the tech that you guys are privileged to.
Guilty.
And when I grew up, I sound old now, but like when I grew up, I never had that. You know, we didn't have like my phone, and I was quite late to getting a phone, but it was like a Nokia 3210, and like the most advanced thing was like Snake, and that was that, which you probably don't even know what that is, do you?
No, I don't.
Oh, you know? Yeah, so it's like a block and you chase these other blocks and the snake grows. We didn't have colourful screens or like social media apps that literally just crave your attention and feed all of the, you know, everything, the chemical, biological changes within your brain that happen whilst you're using those apps. Like, we didn't have all of that. Of course, we've got it now. I'm quite, you know, I'm quite aware of that, and I try to manage as much time off stuff like that as possible. But yeah, we don't talk about all the addictions that, you know, people are addicted to: food, chocolate. There's so many different addictions out there, not just drugs. And I think for your generation, you face a lot more peer pressure, especially online, than what I ever faced. So yeah, I don't mean this patronizing, but sorry for you guys. But yeah, but again, when we talk about addiction, we never talk about those things. It's always drugs, because I think as a society, we deem that to be the worst. And even within drugs itself, I guess ketamine, well, it's a class B drug. It was a class C drug, but even ketamine, like when I went to rehab, for example, I was told by even staff members that I didn't deserve a place, and I looked like 6 stone and nearly dead. Or for all intents purposes, I look like a junkie, right? Which is a horrible word, but I'm using it for a reason. But and I was told I didn't deserve a place in rehab because I wasn't using the right drugs. You know, so what is it, only heroin users that can go to rehab? But then we have this perception of, and also it's not just a perception, there is a hierarchy of drugs. You know, crack and heroin are the worst. Ketamine's not so bad. Cocaine, it's glamorized a lot more. You know, and there's a whole stigma within that as well. So it's incredibly difficult. You know, I didn't qualify to be a proper drug addict to go to rehab, which is crazy. And And what I realized was even I had that perception of, like when I went to rehab, I'm going to say some really stigmatizing stuff, but for a reason. But like, you know, I wasn't a crackhead or a smackhead, and I had all my teeth and I had like nice long hair and stuff. And I was like, well, I'm not as bad as this smackhead I'm sat next to or this crackhead. And they would look at me and be like, oh, this kid doesn't deserve to be, he's not as bad as us. You know, so it was really weird, right? But after probably about 2 or 3 weeks, what I started to understand was there's really no difference between me and him or her, whether it's crack, smack, ketamine, whatever. The issues that we were suffering with, you know, the insecurities, the adverse childhood experiences, the pain, the suffering, the trauma, all of those things and events that we went through that caused, you know, a lot of internal pain, that's the common thing that we all suffered with. We were all trying to escape. We were all trying to run away from something. And I started to then focus on the underlying issues as opposed to, well, I'm not as bad as you, or you're not as bad as me, and all of that hierarchical stuff that I've just mentioned. So, you know, I guess that highlights there's a lot more work that needs to be done when we talk about drugs. But yeah, hopefully I answered that.
Yeah.
Can I ask you a question then?
Yeah.
Do you think, this is for you, Thomas, do you think that drug use with young people has gotten worse over the last like 20 years, or do you think it's gotten better?
When you say better.
Yes, but I mean, like, do you think that young people are more prone to taking drugs now than, say, 20 years ago, or do you think it's still kind of the same? If you get what I mean.
Yeah.
I'm just thinking of the whole, like, train spotting era, and then obviously, like...
Weirdly enough, I was asked by a reporter a similar question about that, because it's the 20-year anniversary of thingy. Yeah.
And it's not like, for these guys, obviously, growing up, is it going to become a more normalised thing, or is it going to kind of lower itself?
Yeah, I think drugs are normalised within specific communities. Like for example, if you grow up in an impoverished, poverty-stricken area, you're 18 times more likely to take drugs. That's regardless of anything else. So just based upon where you're born and the environment that you live in is also a very, you know, determining fact whether or not you will end up taking drugs. Now, it doesn't mean you'll be a drug addict in 6 stone and need to go to rehab, but up to 18 times more likely to use drugs just because where you're born is absolutely horrific. And that all stems around poverty as well, and inequalities, which is obviously a huge driving force behind addiction. But I think young people today have much more access to drugs. Like when I used to buy drugs in the early days, you know, I would get a number off someone. I'd have to meet some dodgy guy down a black alley where it's dark, and it would all be very shifty and very dodgy, and you'd feel very nervous and scared, and you'd also be like, oh my God, are they going to rob me? Are they going to, you know, are the drugs really drugs? You know, all of that. So there was a lot of anxiety and fear in buying drugs. And then ultimately as well, am I going to get caught by the police? Am I going to go to jail for the rest of my life? Because that's also sort of what we're taught as well. But yeah, I think your generation has a lot more access and resources to buy drugs. Like I couldn't go on Snapchat at 14, 15 years old and order drugs and have it delivered within 24 hours without meeting anybody, you know, without even exchanging cash, you know. And a lot of drug dealers in my days didn't want money in their bank anyway, for obvious reasons. But I wouldn't necessarily drug use is worse. I don't know the statistics to that, to be honest. I'm a bit ashamed for saying that. But I think you have a lot more resources to buy drugs. And also I think you have a lot more things to be addicted to than I did. Like there's a whole variety of drugs that didn't exist when I started taking drugs. Like vapes wasn't a thing. You couldn't buy vapes, and even you can like bash drugs in vapes as well, and that's quite common. I do quite a lot of work with the police as a whole across the UK, and yeah, there's a lot of work that they're doing in schools with vapes that are bashed with like THC and stuff like that. In fact, where my partner lives in Barnsley, there was a mum that was actually making vapes at home and giving it to the kid to sell in a school. And they were selling thousands. So that just shows you, shows you loads of different things. But again, you know, we never had vapes. You know, kids might smoke. Again, nicotine is a drug. But it wouldn't be that common. Whereas I see kids vaping all the time, which is really quite concerning. Mm-hmm. So yeah. I don't know if it's worse or better, but I don't know. And I think COVID as well, like you live through COVID. I never had to live through that, where you're completely isolated, terrified if you turn on the telly because everyone's telling you everyone's around you's dying from hugging or holding hands or, you know, giving your mum or dad a hug or whatever could potentially kill them and you. I never grew up with anything like that. You know, a global catastrophe like that. Whether, you know, you want to get into all the COVID thing, but, you know, ultimately you were imprisoned for what, 18 months? I wasn't. And again, that has a detrimental effect on your physical and mental health as well. And I think a lot of people that use drugs today that I know, especially ketamine, is a direct result of COVID. So yeah.
I think you two can both agree with me on this one. Drugs nowadays and like vapes and stuff are more because of peer pressure. Like they're not doing it willingly.
They just like think it's really, really cool, but like it's actually not, because it'll like just affect them like even more than like they think it would do, but they just don't realise it. And it's like really, really bad, but it's like, I don't know how to explain it.
Yeah, because we like use this term, we call it like a hard man. Like if you're trying, like if you're doing like vapes and drugs and stuff, you're trying to act like a hard man and stuff, or like act tough.
Yeah.
But it's really not tough. It's just,
Yeah.
it can kill you.
Yeah.
It can absolutely ruin your life. It can affect your mental health and everything.
Yeah.
I feel like a fraud, so if I'm grinning, I'm sorry, but I've actually worked with a vape company before, but not, in fairness, they are an amazing company that they provide vapes for people that are trying to stop smoking. So there's nothing in it. It's like plant-based products and stuff like that. But I do feel like, oh my God, vapes, and I've worked with an organisation years and years ago, but who are great, by the way. But the vapes that, and again, you know, we weren't bombarded with subliminal messages like you are every day. Like we had a TV and a radio. That was it. We didn't have social media and like 25 different versions of social media and a device in your pocket that's constantly trying to, you know, steal your attention. And on top of that, all the apps that you use, the algorithms and everything else like that. You know, if you look at one vape thing, then you're bombarded with like vape messages, or the advertisement is a lot more advanced and really dangerous. You know, when I was younger, like I didn't start taking drugs till I was like 17 and a half. But I never had a phone where, you know, Facebook was a thing, I think MySpace at first and then Facebook, but we didn't have the apps that you have today. You know, there's Instagram, Snapchat, TikTok. You can tell me there's probably 20 others, right? There's tons, right? And I only have Instagram. And even that, I'm very cautious of being on all the time, and I set myself limits and restrictions and stuff, and I find it quite boring. I actually deleted my social media a couple of years ago, and I deleted it for, I think, nearly 2 years, and it was really good. I missed sort of sharing stuff about my son or the work that I did, and again, for my work, so I need to have a bit of a platform online to share what I do, which is really pathetic when you think about it. But yeah, you know, we didn't have that. We didn't have something in my pocket that was constantly drawing my attention to it. And then whilst I'm on it, being bombarded with all this stuff, you know, and again, you know, it's easier. I don't know if you know this, but in Glasgow in particular, it's quicker to order drugs than it is a pizza. And you all live in Glasgow and probably know how easy it is to order a pizza, but you can get drugs quicker. And that's an actual statistic. And I never grew up with that. You know, I might have had drug dealers texting me every week with offers, which is like a sales pitch, but I wasn't bombarded on social media with that. You know, so, you know, again, I feel sorry for your generation. I think, I don't know, would you want a ban? Because that's obviously in play at the moment, isn't it?
Well, I don't actually have social, well, I've got Snapchat, but like I don't really count it as social media, because I usually just text my friends on it. But like it's got like Spotlight, which is just like TikTok basically, but then if you watch like 30 seconds more of like something else, that'll just come on your algorithm more. And it's just like kind of like draws you in, and it kind of your phone listens to you, so like if you talk about football or something, like it'll come up, and it's kind of scary how it like just comes up.
We were talking about that in school today, because in English today we just kind of just talked the full periods because we were just having a class discussion. And one of my friends actually is really clever about this. She was saying scrolling makes your brain smaller.
Yeah, it does.
Because because when you scroll for ages and ages and ages and ages, it just stops your brain from developing.
Yeah. So when I like first got my phone, I had YouTube and I was just like watching YouTube shorts for ages, and then like the actual like the thing at the bottom, like it has the shorts and the home and stuff, it actually burned into my phone, and that was with my old phone, but like I watched it that much that it was like burned into my phone, but I stopped watching it, and so I had to have like a background that was dark so you couldn't see it. If you had a white background you could see it, and it was like very vibrant, but some people couldn't see it. Like Jessica couldn't see it on my phone, but I was like, that's right there, can you not see it? And then but yes, I stopped using it, but now when I got my new phone, like I'm using Snapchat more often, and I'm really scared if it burns in my phone again, but I'm not using it that often. So
Yeah.
Because we were talking about whether we think banning social media would be a good thing. So I know in Australia they've completely banned it for under 16s. And our English teacher was saying, like, who thinks it would be a good thing? And only a couple people put their hand up, because I actually think, like, see our generation, I think, yes, I'm on my phone like all the time. Sorry, mum. But like, yes, we're on our phones all the time. Like we never do anything other than like scrolling our phones unless we're going out and doing something. But I think if we ban it, it will make us a lot better.
yeah.
Like, I feel like social media is really bad for your mental health. Like, some of the stuff that comes up is like wild,
Yeah.
and like people can just go into depression and stuff, and it just doesn't make them feel good like at all. So I think a ban might be good, but at the same time I don't, because I really do like Snapchat.
But
It's fake as well, you know, like I'm on, as I said, Instagram, and I try not to be fake, but like there are people out there that literally just use platforms to sell you something, whether it's some sort of training program or a course, or they just want you to buy whatever it is that they're selling. You know, a lot, you know, no one really posts, like no one's really authentic on, you know, and stuff like that. And again, I think for your generation, you can't really do anything without social media. Like you constantly, like, you know, if you go to, like when I used to, I'm not trying to glamorize it, but like when I used to take drugs, I used to go out as well, right? To clubs and stuff. And no one was ever on the phone. Like what you would do is the only way you could share pictures of, there would be a photographer for like whatever event it was that night. And then you'd have like to wait a week, or I'd be nagging, like, or I'd be like, oh, did you get any pictures of us? And they'd like give you a card. And then you'd wait till that like photographer would post on Facebook or MySpace or whatever. They would post like that event, like the night out, and then you'd be looking through everything thinking, oh my God, I had some pictures took, I wonder if I'm on them. And you maybe share them. Like there was none of this. Like, thankfully I haven't been to a nightclub in a very long time. But even when I, oh God, I'm trying to think the last time I like, maybe 10 years ago, right? But even then people, like I went like, even at the gym, right? I can't go to the gym without falling over tripods or people just constantly filming everything that they're doing. And I'm like, really? And I'm guilty of maybe a selfie sometimes in the gym, but I don't record myself for an hour and a half doing some stupid exercise that I'm not even doing properly right in the first place. Like there's this need to feel like, what do you call it? FOMO, like fear of missing out. Mm-hmm. And that's another driving factor as to why you have all these things in the first place, because you think that you need to be on it. When I didn't have social media, it was easier. Everything was easier. I could enjoy moments with my son without thinking, oh crap, I need to film this, or I need to do this, or I need to share this. Like it was amazing just actually enjoying the moment. And I think that's something that, I don't mean to patronize it, but your generation are really missing out on, you know, just that authentic, wonderful moment without a camera and a flashlight and a tripod or all of that.
Yeah. I think what you're saying about the FOMO, a lot of people post videos so that people can comment on them and make them feel good about themselves. And I think it gives you like an adrenaline rush, like people liking your video and making you sound amazing and stuff. Like I know all these people post out videos of themselves like doing like lip syncs. Yeah. You know what I mean?
I think it's so cringy.
I know people like do it so people can comment like, oh, you're so beautiful, or like, oh, you're so handsome and stuff. But really, like, it's about what you feel about yourself, not what anyone else thinks, what you think. Yeah. And if you think that you need to keep posting these videos for people to like accept you, then you shouldn't do it.
Yeah. Like when I first got my phone, my parents were like, you're not getting any social media like forever, but like they gave me Snapchat like when I got my new phone, like for my 30th birthday, and but now like I really wanted TikTok for ages and ages, but then now I don't really want it because I like see how people like kind of like get so addicted to it, and it's just like so bad. But like, yeah, so I don't really want it anymore.
Yeah, you're not missing out. And I think the only people that would say, like I know in Australia there was like a couple of people that like went to court about it and stuff, but they were people that had like huge followings where they're making money from it. Other than that, who cares? Like who cares? Like
I saw people that like are from Australia, but they moved to America just to like do it, so like to like
I know who you're talking about.
Yeah, like,
who is that? Are these some like influencers?
Yeah,
or something?
yeah.
Like, imagine being that privileged to be able to just leave a country and move somewhere.
yeah. So they just moved, and it was like, yeah.
Yeah, but no, it's bad, and you are preyed upon, you know, in all sorts of ways online as well, which is bad, you know, bad. But you know, yeah, I think social media, and I have a son who's 2, he's 3 soon actually, but I'm very worried of being on the phone in front of him, or like all we had to worry about was watching television. You know, there's 5 million screens in front of him at all times. You know, if it's not grandma, it's mum, it's dad, it's, you know, he's like he's got a brother and sister as well, and my partner has 2 kids as well. So it's like we're very conscious. And also I actually just bought him, which is really gonna sound bad, but I bought him an iPad for Christmas. Not because I want him glued to it, but we don't live together yet, so we have like a 5-hour drive in between. So sometimes it helps, but I'm very aware that that's also bad, right? And also, like, I notice that when I go out shopping, like if we go like just for a food shop, for example, I see kids in trolleys just thrown in a trolley with an iPad, or like even like babies that have like a contraption like this that is literally gluing an iPad to their face, and they're just constantly addicted to it. Thankfully, my son isn't like that at all. You know, even though he's 2, he has hobbies. So like I take him climbing every weekend. His mum takes him swimming at least once or twice a week. He does all sorts of stuff. We build dens, we go to the woods, like I throw him in mud and all that crap, right? And that's what kids should be doing. And biologically, all that is good for you as well. You know, I hate the fact that, you know, kids sort of young people your age, most of, I'm not saying you guys, but like, I know young people that are terrified of leaving the house. Like they're scared to socialize. Why is that? Well, it's because they don't know how to socialize without a headset and a joypad and some username. And that, you know, that fundamentally is going to cause you severe long-term problems, socially, especially. Yeah, it's scary to say the least.
Oh, when I was little, I had a little Kindle. Like,
yeah, well, that's actually what I got him, an Amazon Kindle thing.
And I had it, and I always like asked my sister, like, so we had to ask for it in the morning, like on Saturday morning. I'm like, my sister, I'd like, go ask mum and dad if we're allowed the Kindles, and she'd be running back, we're allowed the Kindles. Well, we just like games on it. It was like really fun. It was like the hair salon ones. I was like, I love those.
I used to play all like the Toka games.
The Toka Boka.
Because I wasn't allowed like anything at first. Like I didn't get I got a tablet, like a wee one, when I was like 4 maybe.
Yeah.
Because like I got it because just something to do. I only had games and stuff on it just because. And then actually this Christmas I got an iPad too. And my mum got me it because she wants me to use it for my homework. And I will admit I do use it for my homework, but I also use it to play like Roblox and stuff. Yeah.
But it's designed the same way. So actually I listened to a really interesting podcast the other day with a lady that is trying to sort of tackle the government and tech education in schools. So like, I'm not sure but did you get like free tech at school? Like I know a lot of schools in England get like free iPads and stuff like that. Not to keep forever, but like whilst they're at school, and it's to do the homework. But a lot of them are designed and use the same things as social media. So it's like the engagement in a screen destroys your brain anyway. That's proven. There's thousands, millions of statistics and evidence-based, scientific-based research to prove that. But yeah, like I actually had this discussion with a lecturer the other day. I asked her, she was like sick of marking, right? And all of her markings on the screen. She's like, my eyes and all this, right? And she's an amazing lecturer. I actually probably get on with her one of the most because we have, she studied addiction for like decades. So like, I love all of that. So we get on really well. Or so I think anyway, I don't know how she feel. But yeah, she was like, oh my God, my eyes are killing and all that. And I mentioned listening to this podcast. And I said, would you rather mark work that's written, like essays that are written on, you know, pen and paper? She was like, I'd absolutely love that. And I was like, actually, what would happen if I tried to submit an essay and they wouldn't accept it? So all of our work has to be on a screen. So I couldn't write, which would be a real pain in the backside because I'd be constantly making mistakes in editing and I have to look at my research and then go back and forth and it'd be really difficult, right? But I can't even submit a written essay. And there's tons of scientific backed research that talks about the feel of a paper, actually writing down, and the cognitive stuff that it does to your brain increases your learning as well. So all of that evidence, and I still can't submit a written document or an essay, which is great. Sometimes there's an awful lot of words, but I'm not even allowed to do that. And probably you can't do that either. Most of your not essays, but most of your homework is done on a tablet or a laptop. And again, it's the same systems that are destroying your brain that now you're doing your homework on. So the parents will think, oh my God, that's great. You're doing your homework on, it's easier, but long term for the effects that it has, is it better? Yeah. Is it really? And there's a big movement in the UK at the moment that's trying to tackle that. Whether they're successful or not, I don't know. But yeah, it's dangerous.
Yeah. In English, if we're writing an essay, we'll write it on paper. But then we'll have a couple periods to write it. Once we're finished, we have to go and put it on a Chromebook for the teacher to hand in a mark.
I hate that. I hate when I have to write it down, then type it
I
up.
like writing way better.
I like writing, because then I can actually I don't know how to explain it. I just like it.
I wonder what would happen if you, as a class, as a collective little group, if you all, this is where we're throwing in the theory in it, but I wonder if you all wrote your next homework on a piece of paper and submitted it and see what happened.
I've done that for biology. I didn't know how to do it. No, it was my chemistry actually. I had all this homework in Google Classroom. I didn't know how to do it, so I just wrote it down on a bit of paper and I handed it in.
Oh, we got our homework on paper. On chemistry.
I know, because sometimes last, do you have the resources to go on Google Classroom and stuff? And people will be like, no, I don't have anything at home to do that. They'll be like, I'll get you a paper copy and they'll print it off for you.
Yeah. I don't like the paper at school. It's eco-free paper now.
It's not white. At my school, when I got, this girl got a Chromebook home because she didn't have anything that she could use at home for homework. So, and the school actually gave her a Chromebook to take home, which I think is quite
I want that.
weird. But
I want to have a Chromebook.
After Christmas, I bought an iPad because literally everything is on Google Classroom, and I used to use my phone because my laptop is broken. Not my fault.
It never is it?
No.
It breaks something.
So now I just use my iPad for Google Classroom, but I think it's really bad how everything is on Google Classroom and online. It's not good for you.
Yeah. And also imagine if you went to school and you didn't have a phone. Do you think you'd be bullied? If you didn't have the latest iPad?
Yeah, 100%.
Or Lululemon top or all the other crap that you're told to buy.
Yeah, definitely.
And again, there's a social element of that you need this to fit in. You don't need an iPad or the latest Apple or Google or whatever to fit in. I know it's clever marketing, but really it's, it creates more bullying. And also when I was at school, bullying sort of stopped when you finished school, whereas now they can, bully you online all night and all day. And I think it just causes more problems than it does solve issues, so.
Yeah.
Right, so I think that's all we have time for, guys.
Yeah.
So that's all we have time for today. I've been your host, Cara, and I've been joined by Leah, Morven, and Thomas.
Thank you.
Now let's move on to group 2, guys. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.